Wide area networking technologies are evolving quickly. I'm Zeichick with NetEvents TV, and we're seeing a lot of changes in the way you have enterprise to enterprise, data center to data center, cloud to cloud, and enterprise to cloud networks. I'm talking to several experts about what they see as the biggest advantages and industry changes affecting the WAN today. The industry's been talking about SD-WAN for a few years now. How's it doing? Are customers embracing it?
SD-WAN has caused a lot of, it's created a lot of attention in the marketplace. Initially, it was really driven by the supplier community, both by the technology companies developing the solutions as well as service providers offering managed services. Albeit with some trepidation, because the concept of SD-WAN, in other words, securely allowing traffic to use the internet for wide area network connections, is potentially would cannibalize existing network services revenues. However, that said, it did offer opportunities, and there was a sort of obvious demand for it. Now, in terms of the actual uptake, we're still in the early days. I think that there's been a tremendous amount of activity on the supply side. So a number of startups, you had another number of companies placing bets with some of those new technology suppliers, a number of existing suppliers getting into the SD-WAN game because they saw the future where this was going to go. And in some ways you might think, well, has the music stopped? And as everyone who is going to be partner up with a service provider or another technology company in the ecosystem found their chair and the rest are out of business? Well, probably not, because again, it's very early stages in terms of actual deployments within businesses, within enterprises. So there's a lot of opportunity that's unmet yet, and that will create an opportunity to innovate and for more activity still on the supplier side of the ecosystem.
So we've been looking at SD-WAN for about 3 years and have had a market-ready product for the last 2. We found it to be probably the most successful product that we've launched as an organization. It really resonates with our customers who are as small as a single site up to customers with thousands of locations. They really find the value in the cost avoidance that they find from the increased bandwidth that they need as their digital experience is being elevated at all their locations. They find that their network can't keep up with it. And moving to SD-WAN, even keeping their existing MPLS and adding broadband into the network gives them tremendous improvement in their application performance and makes their network ready for where they want to go.
What's even more interesting is how rapidly customers are choosing to roll out SD-WAN. We very quickly went from customers that were piloting 10 to 15 sites to customers that are now rolling out several hundred sites over the course of 2 to 3 months.
Have you heard about the concept called application-specific networks? If so, what do you think about it?
I think now that the cost of internet transit and fiber and backbone has come down so dramatically, I think it's a natural outcropping of the SDN and content delivery network capability that we've had for a while. I think it will really improve the performance of specific applications, and by pushing the compute and storage out as close to the customer as possible is going to give an enhanced experience for the end user.
So application-specific networks or application-driven networks, to me, is the ultimate goal. That's what we want to happen. The idea of sort of application aware or centric, or there's lots of different words that are used after the hyphen. In fact, it goes all the way back probably a dozen years or more. Cisco had this idea called application-oriented networks and so forth and so on. So the idea has always been a good one. It's where we want to go, and it is where we should be heading. I do think it's today a bit futuristic. There's a long way to go before you have, because applications will have to be programmed to control the networks that they ride over, or to communicate with the networks that they ride over in a autonomous autonomous dynamic sense. So the idea is great. It's where we all want to go. It's all where we will go, but there still is a long way to go to get there.
Is MPLS dead? Have technologies like SD-WAN finally stuck the fork in that old fixed line technology?
We've heard that MPLS is going to be dead since SD-WAN first came out, and it was, I think, probably one of the loudest bells that the technology companies were ringing at the time. And frankly, what we found is that the vast majority of our customers are either our existing customers or the new customers that we acquire with the SD-WAN technology are keeping their MPLS. So they're keeping their Windstream MPLS, or they're buying Windstream MPLS and broadband and or 4G and managing it all or overlaying it all with SD-WAN. There are definitely use cases for MPLS. Some of the strongest ones are still in the financial sector, where they want the private connectivity. It's not necessarily that they want the MPLS per se. They want the private connectivity from the prem all the way to the core. And then you still have a lot of IT directors, IT leadership who are comfortable with who are comfortable with MPLS and how it works, and they're going to keep it in their network for quite a while. We see that MPLS is going to have a very long tail.
I don't think it's time to put the nail in the MPLS coffin quite yet. If you look at things historically, there's still people that are actually running frame relay, which is a technology that we introduced, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago to the enterprise. So these things take a long time to tail off. And there's lots of customers that are still happy and want to have that MPLS as a fallback, even as they add internet into their wide area network connections or 4G LTE. So it will be a long tail on the MPLS drop-off, I think.
I'm in the MPLS is not dead. I think that there is still a need for that kind of connectivity. There's still demand from enterprises for that kind of connectivity, and there will be going forward. And indeed, a lot of the SD-WAN implementations we're seeing actually depend on MPLS eventually to get home. So I think that's the case we're in now. Will we get to a point where internet-based, secure internet-based networking obviates the need for nailed-up connections via MPLS? Possibly, but I think that's going to be a while yet, and so I don't think MPLS is dead. I think the important thing about this question, though, is you got to look at it from the enterprise perspective or the buyer's perspective. At the end of the day, what I'm hearing from them is really that they don't care. They want their business problems to get solved and their applications get supported, and they're going to turn to either an integrator or a service provider and say, just get it done. So the networking aspect of it and how it gets connected or gets accomplished is sort of fading in significance for them, or at least that's what they want anyway. So really, then, if, the role of MPLS versus other sorts of solutions comes down to how much does it cost and how much can we charge the customer, and what is the return or the profit margin for the supplier. So, long answer to the question, but I think it's a more complicated question than simply is MPLS dead or not.
What do customers think about the idea of using the public internet as the trusted business critical backbone for their organization? Are they comfortable with this? And if they question it, what do you say about it?
We are there. You can, and increasingly companies are happy to use the internet to connect branches and things like that. There are certain early adopters versus in terms of vertical industries. We're seeing a fair amount of traction in retail, for example, organizations that have lots of distributed branches, et cetera, with sort of more or less mission critical needs are increasingly happy to use the internet for those types of connections. And so yes, we are there, and it's just going to get better going forward. In terms of what is a tipping point to where that's all we'll need, yeah, when we start seeing I guess banks and insurance companies and all these types of organizations getting rid of everything but internet-based wide area connections, then I guess that will be the tipping point again.
What we found is that customers absolutely feel that we're there. When you look at the fitness of internet for business, it's come a long way, and it's come a long way specifically in the broadband arena, right? We've had T1 and DS3 of internet, which has been fit for business for a long time. We're now finding that the broadband networks, the 4G networks are now also fit for business. And when you combine it, either with combining multiple broadband connections, or you combine a broadband connection with an MPLS connection, customers really feel that it is rock solid performance, especially when you manage it, when you overlay SD-WAN on the top of it.
So several years ago, they would have said, no, we're not going to do that. We don't trust it. It's not secure. It's not highly available enough. It's not reliable enough. The big change came with the transition to cloud-based applications when they realized they were trusting the public internet anyway for 25%, 50% or more of their applications. The light bulb went off and they thought, if I'm doing that for SaaS apps, why don't I do that for my wide area network? That combined with a technology like SD-WAN that lets you combine multiple internet connections so you overcome the availability problem, and with technologies like Silver Peak's path conditioning that overcome packet loss and out-of-order packets in the network, and also provide a fully encrypted 256-bit AES mesh of connections so you know that everything's secure.
How do GDPR and other compliance regulations factor into the use or non-use of WAN technologies that go over the internet, such as SD-WAN?
Yeah, so there are people that ask the GDPR question all the time, and there are people that aren't, customers that aren't impacted by GDPR that still will ask that question. So the key with a solution like ours is that there's no PII, no personally identifiable information that's getting transferred from the branch office to the Silver Peak cloud. So from the perspective of the SD-WAN solution, GDPR isn't a concern. Now, all that said, we are a company that has a website that does things like send you email should you register for it. So one of the things that we've had to respond to is make sure that all of the countries in which we serve that kind of information are GDPR compliant.
As we've seen, the WAN is evolving rapidly with new technologies like SD-WAN and increased use of the internet really making inroads in traditional technologies like MPLS. For NetEvents TV, I'm Zeichick.